Hey Neena, welcome. So
Hi
I'd like to
Deepa, good
tell
to
the
be here.
audience, I want to tell the audience that you are watching the 100th episode of the Lumiere Learning Monday, and our very, very esteemed guest today is educator and a passionate advocate inclusive education, Neena Jacob, uh, who trained as an architect and meandered into education. And I'm looking forward, Nina, to have this conversation with you today, coming to us from Goa.
Yeah, thank you, Deepa. I know we've been chatting about this, and you've been a driving force all the time, with the way you can handle multiple things. And I think it strikes a chord there. We have our fingers in everything. And with architecture, though I did do my training, I think it's the best thing that happened to me because architecture is one of those courses which is such a lovely blend of techno- technology and maths and science and languages and art and history. And as a primary teacher, where the concepts are being developed, you need to be able to see that. And it helped me visualize so many things. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to, work well with that age group.
So, Nina,
So,
you've always been passionate about kids, and I think you also wanted to be a teacher growing up, right? But somewhere along the way, you decided to change track, do architecture.
yeah, architecture is so glamorous. Yeah. And who hasn't read of Fountainhead by Ayn Rand and dreamt of making buildings that touch the sky and all that? But it's not all that glamour. And, I just realized that there was more to me than just this. I wanted to get into the lives of children and be there and help them see the world. And I decided to go into it. My husband and my parents were very upset at that time, and they told me we're giving you 2 years, but I don't think they have any regrets now about the whole thing.
It's interesting you should say your husband also was a little disappointed, and I think that you probably went and did architecture was at JJ School of Architecture was because you were meant to meet Jacob, possibly.
Yeah, that definitely, definitely. But the thing is, you just wonder, what is this going to be like? You have a qualification in this. How will you perform in that? But when they saw that I had a lot of satisfaction and I was so involved with the kids and so passionate about it, I think they realized that I had made the correct choice.
So you had to go and get yourself trained and certified
Ye-
all over again. So
Yes, I had to get myself trained and certified. And because I had this background of architecture, I decided to do what they call a 2 years trained teacher certificate from the Anglo-Indian or the ICSC board, precisely because it doesn't, put you into a watertight compartment of science and history or arts or whatever. So you learn all the subjects because you are qualified to teach for the primary, that is basically first to standard 7, where we had traditionally class teachers and not subject teachers.
okay.
And yeah, and so that was a real, and we had wonderful, those old school teachers who had become teachers in training colleges after many years in regular schools, and very inspirational teachers. And I think that was the best decision I made, and not to do a B.Ed and do a TTC.
So Nina, this part of inclusive education, how did that come up? Come by you? And I know because we had one. Um, First of all, even to identify and then to sort of these are not big small classes; they are big classes. How do you kind of even operationalize and execute something like this consistently? How do you make that a
Deepa,
philosophy?
I was very skeptical, when our principal and teacher said, we have to include these children. And I kept thinking, 60 kids in one class. How are we going to manage? You're responsible for every one child, not that one child, one child with special needs alone. But okay, since the school said, I worked with them. It started around 1991
Uh-huh.
and struggled along with it, but there was no conviction. We were in dialogue with many institutions, one of them being the Spastic Society, which is now called ADAPT, that is Able, Disabled, All People Together.
Okay.
Okay. And there was this whole seminar on inclusion, and very, well-known speakers in the world of education, spouting the merits and benefits of inclusion and all. And at the end, almost at the end, there was this little old lady from Bangladesh, in one white sari, typical that Bengali sari tied with the keys around on one shoulder. And then she came and she said, "What are you city people doing? Don't you understand children are children? In our villages, when a child is 6, he goes to school. If he can't walk, his sister or his father carries him or her, and they sit in one corner and someone helps them. They are part of what happens in a child's life." And that was like a revelation to me. And I realized that, putting these children in isolation, we are denying them so much. And I'm telling you, Deepa, after that time, it was with conviction that I went into inclusion. It was not just because I was fulfilling, a request or an order from someone higher up. And then the funny part of it was that, see, when I picked my teachers for a child, say, I'm giving this child who had a vision, the first one of our first children was a child with hearing challenge, auditorily challenge, and visually challenged. So when
Okay.
I pick the teachers, obviously you pick someone who's patient and
Hmm.
who is also in sync with the idea.
Hmm.
And every time after we had a set of assessments, I used to sit with the teachers and ask them, how did your class perform? How many got, stars? How many were not able to, meet the minimum line? And I found consistently that those classes which had children with special needs performed better. And that wasn't the case in the previous year when the teacher did not have a child with a special need. And I realized that when that teacher was teaching the child who had a auditorily challenged or visually challenged, she was using his other intelligences. If you have heard about multiple intelligences
Yes.
by Gardner, now we typically use only our auditory and our visual, but there are so many more, So the teacher who had the child who was visually challenged, her words, and she used music, and she used movement, and the teacher who had a child who had a hearing challenge, she used colors, and those children who were also stronger intelligences were the visual or the auditory intelligence, they benefited. And that made me more convinced than ever that, this is the need of the hour.
Wow.
And the children also became more empathetic. And the one thing is there, Deepa, children can also be very cruel at times. So when these children, we used to have an admission by lottery.
Hmm.
So 360 children admitted, say, and by just 3% of that always has 3% of the children have some special need or the other.
I see.
Okay. So when these kids came in right from the beginning, the children they're very protective towards them. This is our child. I want to
Hmm.
help him walk. I want to help them. So, that nurturing spirit is there in the children. However, when a child comes in later, especially after the fourth and fifth, there is a bit of resentment, there is a bit of bullying.
Hmm.
But in the initial stages, it is so sweet, the way the children sort of want to do something for this child. And those children take full advantage of it. I remember we had this little cutie who had this wheelchair, and everyone wanted to be her friend because she would take them for rides in the corridor, you know. And these kids made us see things in a different way. Like I remember one incident was we were learning about animals, and the teacher decided to bring. We had a cat and a dog in school, so she brought the cat, and she got this boy to touch the legs and say, "See, there are 4 legs. You have 2 legs," and everything. And then she said, "Show the tail," and he held the tail and he pulled it, and then he just turns around and asks her, "What is the tail used for? Why don't I have a tail?" And oh my God, that set off a whole lot of thinking, because we never think about it, it's there. It's swishes the flies away, it moves around, and she started reading, finding out about it. So these children make us see things in a different way. They challenge us constantly to give more of ourselves. But that being said, Deepa, sometimes it was very difficult. We had to work with therapists, so that they get their lip reading in place. They get, when we had in those days, we didn't have software packages like JAWS, which is such a wonderful package designed by a professor in Xavier's. In those days, we had to rely on NAB. And I'm telling you, it's so tough to learn Braille when you are blessed with eyes, because you just are not able. Because can you imagine, you're punching in the letters and then you're flipping the page over to read it. You get it? So you're
Yeah.
punching it one way and you're reading a mirror image.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was so
Okay.
tough and mind-boggling. You really understand. I remember, he should try and fool me. And then I had to ask his father. I said, please write it. His father had learned to help him in pencil. And then we had to go to NAB regularly, get the books from there. We had to go to the Ali Yavar Jung Institute. So initial years were very tough before technology came and made everything so easy to transfer online and enabled us to become better.
Wow. So
But
the
then
the spectrum of disabilities you all worked with is, Neena, these were, you said.
everything. We had hearing impaired, we had visually impaired, we had mobility challenged, we had children with autism on the spectrum, Fragile X syndrome, so many, Deepa. But there is a wonderful institution in Navi Mumbai in Vashi, near the Raghulila Mall. It's called ETC for PWDs. That is Education Training Center for People with Disabilities. And what they do is they train the children and give them skills so that they are better able to perform in a mainstream school.
Oh.
You know, like the lip reading skill, or a child who has autism, how to socialize, how to be more vocal, and these are more affordable options for the parents. So we
Oh.
worked with them. We worked with several other therapists who used to come very often and sit with us and tell us what to do. And there were area times when it was very frustrating. Now, Deepa, I'll tell you a secret. When we first started, the parents would never accept that something, especially children with autism, because they seemingly appear. Now, the term right now is neurotypical. Okay, we don't say a normal. We say neurotypical. They seem to be neurotypical, but there are behavioral issues. When they melt down and they scream and all that. And it was tough for the parent to accept. They would say things like, no, my mother-in-law says my husband was like that when he was small. Now he's okay. So, there's no way you can convince them. So I used to do things like saying, see, can you come in early to pick up your child? You come in an hour early. So while you are looking at the others in the class, we will give special attention to your child. And
Hmm.
believe me, within a week, that parent would say, teacher, you're right. Please help me to find out how to help my child.
Wow.
And we got them coming in to help us, because very often that's what we had to do. We planned worksheets or art or something. We just needed supervision while the teacher had one-on-one time with the kid who needed her attention.
Okay. So the parent volunteers or gives her time.
The parents came in early, very often the mothers. And also we found that support groups are very important. So whether it is sharing notes or sharing how to do, or keeping a child with someone while they want to go out. So the parent support groups were built up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Deepa, sometimes it was not possible for the child to have an academic inclusion in class, because,
Okay.
like with 59 kids and one teacher, it was difficult. So what we used to do was that we used to allow the parents, we used to share our resources with the parents, whether they are PowerPoints, whether they are steps, our teaching learning plans. We should share it with the parents, sit with them, sit with the special educators. But definitely where social inclusion was concerned, the children were included in everything. In fact, very often for our plays also, we should tell people, no, get these kids in. He loves dancing, so he'll be there dancing in his wheelchair, or they'd be
Oh.
there, uh, we tried to include them as much as possible. Like our children who had autism, I remember this boy he had no stage fright at all. Only thing was he'd speak in a deadpan tone and he could memorize anything. So
Wow.
very often we got him to say the welcome address or the farewell address. And he was so, I mean, though he didn't show it, he was very happy and proud that he was selected to do it. So
Yeah,
we
that's
try to tap into their talents.
yeah, that's really sensitive. I think it would have affected the other children and the teachers to just become more compassionate, no, Nina?
Definitely, Deepa, definitely. That was something which happened automatically. Children were more compassionate. In fact, uh, it became so difficult that everyone wanted to be so and so's friend. And then at the same time, I was always mindful of the fact that I can't burden uh, a child with one child sitting with one side and helping him through all the studies. So we
Yeah.
had buddies. Many of them are not able to make friends. So we'll have a maths buddy. So during maths, you'll have a maths buddy coming in. During English, you have an English buddy coming in. So you get to know different children. And
Yeah.
to make the children feel good during our open days, we used to praise the child, but not saying like, say for example, the child is Rita. So we won't say teacher wants to thank Uma for helping Rita. The teacher wants to thank Uma for helping her, because I still always tell the teachers, remember, she's not helping Rita. You are Rita's teacher. She's helping you to be, to work more efficiently with Rita. So the children
Oh,
also felt very proud of themselves, because it wasn't right to say that she's helping a particular child.
yeah,
The
yeah,
parent of the child with special needs would feel slighted or would feel bad about it. And
yeah.
also in this way, it made the parent of the, because some parents would come and say, but my child can do so much and you're putting him with this child, that you help the child and all. But the parent felt happy when the child was praised, given a medal, given a gift for being a
Wow.
helpful child.
It's really like culture building in the school, no, Nina, where everybody sort of takes a shared responsibility for inclusion, so to say. And I'm sure that they become far more sensitive and even successful at their workplaces and wherever else they've gone, these alumni of yours.
Definitely, Deepa. But there is one thing which, I always, uh, which bothers me, which worries me, because sometimes when the children come to school, uh, there is a constant struggle to meet academic standards, like pass the 10th standard, pass the 12th standard. Now, there was this child who was so brilliant at maths when he was in the primary. In his class, I had to give him the paper with the numbers, with the problems in another order, because he would just look at the paper and say 36, 24, 25. So the children who were smart, who knew he was smart, they would just write the answers on the side and solve the paper. You know, so I had to give him the same paper but in a different order. But what
Okay.
happened as he grew older, because his language skills, he like whether history and geography, he was not good at. The mother spent so much time with those subjects, and she just neglected him, and that was never tapped. And I feel
Oh,
sometimes, we are so bothered with this certificates, and this that we like I should keep telling them. I said, just remember, your child will finish school at 16 or 18, and he has 70 or 80 years more. They live long. Find something the child will be interested in doing. Few of them who listen, Deepa, I have artists, I have cooks, I have musicians, because the parents have understood that the child has to be gainfully, I'm talking about economically, but gainfully employed, in the sense that he is enjoying the whole thing instead of just sitting in one corner of the house. And they have made it, like, right, like I should keep telling the mother, you take him when you're going shopping, show him why you're choosing these methi leaves and not those methi leaves, show him how you cut the vegetables. And the child is such a good cook now.
wow.
And there was another boy. Oh, he was so sweet. May I tell you some stories about him?
Yes.
uh, we used to always we used to encourage these children to go to the Marathi section. We had 5 English medium and 1 Marathi, especially if they were Maharashtrians, because you're thinking and studying in the same language, so that's one less of a challenge that you have. So I remember he came to me and he was crying, pot dukta, pot dukta. So I went down and I saw a doctor parent, and immediately I put this child on my table. And the doctor parent was not a Marathi speaking parent, so he came in and he said, Zopa. So the boy got up and said, Kashala Zopa. So the teacher said, no, Pala, Pala. Am I right? Please correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong.
Run,
So one
run.
is sleep and one is lie down. No, lie down is what?
Pada, pada.
Pada. She said, Pada. So then he lay down. Then he gets up again and says, Tumi kon? Because he's got no social skills at all. So he says, Ni doctor, stethoscope kuthe? So the thing is, it was such a lovely interaction which I had, and they're so transparent. There is no guile in them. If they like you, they like you. And I feel primary teachers have a more special bond, because when I see that boy who's 27, I can still see that 6-year-old child in him. So when he comes to me and he puts his hand on my hair and he says, Pandra Kesh, Neena Miss, I don't take it amiss.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if you never knew that boy and you had to do it, you would feel, what's this boy coming and touching my hair for? You know?
Yeah, yeah. So
So
Nina,
the
you
bonding
moved.
is, yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sure. No, no, no. I was just saying that I do want to use the last 9 minutes of our segment to touch upon your post-retirement phase. And was it like automatic working with a center that was focused on inclusive education,
yeah,
Nina?
Deepa, because I felt that, my experience would stand me in good stead. And I wanted to share what I had learned, especially when it came to the about inclusion, because I feel very passionately about it, that these children should not be isolated. And I found that echo in Sethu, where Nandita, who's our director, and the whole bunch of therapists, they're also very much invested in getting children into the mainstream school, getting them to be contributing members of society. And I think I can speak with authority, because we could implement this in a school where there were 60 in a class, and in Goa the classrooms are much smaller. They're appalled when I say 60. But that
Wow.
apart, I feel that the advantage we had with our numbers was that when we had such a so many children, like 60 in a class, we could not go unprepared. So we had to have lesson plans, we had to have reviews, we had to have what exactly are we putting on the board. And when the smart board came, it became even better, because we had to have it in black and white, we had to have it on our pen drives, we had to have it, fed into our computers. And like methods and knowledge was so accessible to everyone. So if one teacher has good handwriting, the other teacher can just put the pen drive, like when you're forming letters in Hindi or English or Marathi or English, in the primary is not only the print, it is how the letters are formed. So we had this teacher who had textbook perfect language. So we used to videotape her writing on the board, and we could play it in every other division of that same class, and the teacher would not have to back the class. She could go to each child and watch how they are writing. So I
Wow.
am really for technology. I'm already really for being more organized when you plan your learning, and that is something where I feel there is a big lacuna here in Goa. People are very casual about the lesson planning. I don't find lesson planning, I don't find people open to innovation in technology. It's like how we were so scared that computers would replace us, and then you had to keep telling the teacher, see, we use boards, then we use OHPs. Now computers have come. It's going to make your life, it's going to make you a better teacher. It's not going to replace you. It's going to make you more efficient. And when you have technology on your side, can you imagine how easy it is to share learning methods and learning styles and lessons with the parents? You just record and you send it to a parent, and the child can see it. Whether it's a child
Yeah.
who is slower to understand, whether it's a child who has a learning disability, whether it is anything, you know, it's so
Correct.
easy to send it on a pen drive. The parent can play it, and the parent can understand how it's taught in class and reinforce the same thing with the child. So
Yeah.
I'm all
Yeah.
for technology, and Setu has such a progressive outlook in the whole thing. We are using these tablets for getting the non-verbal children to communicate. We're using the Avaz app. When our children are in schools, included in schools, they go to these schools and help the teachers make what we call IEP, or individual education plans,
Okay.
and also work with the balwadis, because as you know that early detection is a very essential key in getting over many of the difficulties. When you detect early, remediation can happen early.
Yeah.
And when remediation can happen early, quite a bit of the child can get a lot of benefit from that. And that is something Setu does, goes to the Balwadis, educates the teachers, teaches them what are the things you should look for, what are the signs you should look out for. How can you develop sensitivity in parents? And, we have a center so that they don't all come rushing to our center. There is one place where there'll be someone who can check and say, okay, no, this is not a case that requires you to go to Setu. We can intervene at this stage. So our therapists go to some of these places over there just to double check when someone has a doubt. So it is reaching everyone and it is making education accessible to everyone. And that is why I
Amazing.
got involved in Setu. And that is something that we need, Nudipa.
Yeah.
Unless our
Yeah.
next generation is educated and
Yeah.
sympathetic and empathetic and you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
empowered, there's no way we're just stuck in the same place.
So this detection that you're talking about, again, that 3% norm that you said when you all had the lottery system, do you still find it at a 3% level of disabilities, or has that number changed?
No, Deepa, I would say, especially in the rural areas, maybe because of nutrition or lack of awareness, sometimes it is a bit higher. But 3%, it's roughly there. 3% definitely. But now you have children who have come from broken homes, so they have emotional problems,
Okay.
you know. And then I'll tell you here, I was volunteering at a village school. It's a Marathi medium government school. We have 15 children. And the government policy, I don't know if you know that a child, if he doesn't go to school, when he does go, he goes to an age appropriate class. So in these schools, we have the migrant workers going, okay? And these migrant workers may be from any other state and they are going to a Marathi medium school. So what does the teacher do? She teaches in Hindi. So she be saying, "Main ladki hu," and writing on the board, "Me mulgi aahe."
Oh,
So you can imagine the confusion and the child is totally out of depth. So I was going and working with kids and I learned Marathi to teach them. Told the teacher, I said, I do letter sound association. I don't trust myself beyond that. I can read, I can understand, but you know, my pronunciation is not correct. When someone asks me questions, I'm not confident, to answer correctly in the grammatically correct form. So that is what is happening in the schools. And it's one teacher with 16 kids from 6 to 11. So she has
wow.
3 in the first standard, 4 in the second standard, and some come and some don't come. Some will come
Wow.
twice a month, you know. So it is very challenging and it's very sad to see. So I was going, but now with this pandemic, everything is shut down. So I don't know what my kids are doing now. So
Okay.
Sethu is involved in all these things. They go to these balwadis, they do their testing in these centers, educate the balwadi teachers, have
So now,
support groups for parents, work with sexuality of children who have got special needs. Because very often these children are targeted by mm, I don't know what are targeted because they feel these children won't be able to tell if they are being abused.
oh my dear.
So we are working with all that. So that's the way it is. And I'm very happy to be involved with Setu because they're very passionate about and very committed to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have been recognized last year as one of the best NGOs in Goa. We have been blessed. One of a person has just left us his entire property to do as we want. We're going to dispose of it because it's not meant to be a center for children. But it's good. We are getting recognized for that, and it's good that the whole message of inclusion is being spread everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And currently, this is in one state, and you also work with other states. Does
I
the
was
state?
I was I was working before, but now I think I have done my bit and I'm just over here now.
Yeah.
I do write a parenting column every week for the Navhind Times.
Oh, you
based on
do?
my based on my experience, I write a parenting column
Okay.
for Navhind Times.
Okay. So, we've come to the close of our segment and our conversation with Neena Jacob, an educator par excellence, and who's touched the lives of, I don't even know the number. Maybe you want to give us a count of how many children must have pass through you uh, and your
15,
guidance.
1500 a year for 30 years. But it's wonderful, Deepa. I'll tell you, our first child who had learning disability, he was a producer in a film, and his classmates came and took me for the premiere, and they didn't tell him. And when I entered the room, he just hugged me and he wept. I think maybe all that insecurity came, must have just come back to him, and he's telling me, Neena, miss, I did it. I did it. I said, yeah, you've done it. I mean, you've reached far, far higher than any of us, and we could see that in you. I'm so proud of you. And these are the moments that I'll cherish forever. Really, it was wonderful watching that film. And then he asked me in the end, what did you think about the film? I said, I didn't think much about it. There was too much of violence in it. Once a teacher, always a teacher. No?
Superb. Neena, thank you so much, for coming down and having this conversation with us and leaving so many nuggets for people who will watch about this whole area of inclusion and what it means for the child, what it means for the school, for teachers, and for parents to come together and really focus on what the child is really passionate about so that we can give them an arc of doing things that they're always going to feel that they are capable of doing and really trying to attain their potential. So inclusiveness, the concept of multiple intelligences that you talk about, the need to use leverage technology, the need to be sensitive in this journey of including the child, the language in which we will teach the child and what the child takes away. I think so many lessons for us over here. Neena Jacob, thank you once again for coming
Thank you,
to the
Deepa,
Lumiere
for
Learning
giving me this
Monday.
opportunity to share. And, just talking with you brings back all those memories. And I'm so glad I left architecture to be a teacher. Thank you.
So, for those of you watching, do subscribe to our channel, Lumiere Light and Insight, and you can watch. This was our 100th episode, and there have been teachers, leaders, people who've come and talked and shared inspiring stories. So, this has been our Inspiring Women hashtag event. Neena Jacob, thank you once again.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you to Julie and Nishil too. Thank you.